Good evening. Okay, welcome. What an honor it is to have you here at First United Methodist Church. My name is John McClarty, and on behalf of the pastors and staff and congregation of First United Methodist Church, we are delighted that you would spend part of your Friday evening here as we celebrate the music of George Gershwin. I don't have to tell you that we in the Wichita Falls community are extraordinarily blessed to have the talents of David and Rosa Marsh and Kiyo and Chiemi Watanabe right here. And for those of us who get to hear that every Sunday, sometimes it's easy to take that for granted, either here at First United Methodist Church or at Floral Heights United Methodist Church. But we are not going to take that for granted tonight. I've been the pastor of this church now for the last 6 months. My office is just on the other side of that hallway, and I've been listening to Kiyo rehearse over the last 6 months. And honestly, 6 months ago, it was pretty good. And it's even better tonight. So we are delighted that we can share in this together. I would take a moment, if you don't have a church home and you live here in the Wichita Falls area, we would love to invite you to be a part of worship here on Sunday mornings at 8:30 and 10:30. And you get to hear Kiyo as much as you want, and that's our great privilege as well. But without any further ado, please join me in welcoming to the organ Dr. Kiyo Watanabe.
Hello. It is so funny to see so many of you sitting in that section, because on Sunday morning, that's where nobody sits. Next year, I need to ask church to charge you for that section. And also, I printed 350 programs, but apparently they ran out, and I'm sorry. You should have told me how many of you are coming. If you brought your cell phone, guess what? You don't need to turn it off. We are all addicted to cell phones, and I know turn it off is like shutting off your life support. Please just don't let it ring. Actually, you're welcome to use it to record some parts of the concert on the video and share them with your friends. That's what people do at a rock concert these days. Oh, hello, you don't need to go back to your car to get it, sir. No. So now it is time for you to turn your cell phone if you want to. Okay. This evening, we are going to celebrate the 120th year of George Gershwin's birth. I first came up the idea of giving an all Gershwin program 2 years ago. I will tell you more about it later in the program. The piece I have just played is titled Swanee. Gershwin wrote this song in 1919, which, by the way, will make next year the 100th anniversary of the song. And also, since Floral Heights United Methodist Church was started at the same year, maybe I should play it next year there. They say this song made Gershwin very famous. I'm not sure about it because I wasn't there. The next piece is definitely the most famous piece by Gershwin, and we all know George Gershwin as the composer of this great music, Rhapsody in Blue. It was written for the piano and orchestra, and I wrote the orchestra part for the organ. In fact, this is my first attempt to give a concert for which I arranged all of the music, so this is very important, special program for me. At this time, please welcome Chiemi, who is going to play the piano part. While Chiemi is getting situated at the piano, I'd like to tell you one story about the piece. It was so fascinating to me to learn that Gershwin was able to use the sound and noise which surrounds us in everyday life as the inspiration for his musical compositions. You can understand this better in An American in Paris, which we will hear later in the program. In Rhapsody in Blue, he was inspired by the sound of a train. While he was traveling from New York to Boston on a train, he heard this noise, the rhythm that the train makes, and used it as one of the passages in the music. You can hear this toward the end of the piece in the piano solo, right after the romantic section. This rhythmic passage starts slowly and gradually speeds up, and it sounds like a locomotive. Before I learned about this story, I always thought that was like woodpecker. Okay, now we will play the Rhapsody in Blue.
I got plenty of nothing, nothing's plenty for me. I got no car, I got no mule, I got no misery. The folks with plenty of plenty got a lock on their door, afraid somebody's going to rob them while they's out making more. What for? I got no lock on the door, that's the way to be. They can steal the rug from the floor, that's okay with me. Things that I prize like the stars and the skies all are free. Oh, I got plenty of nothing, nothing's plenty for me. I got my gal, I got my song, got heaven the whole day long. No use complaining. Got my gal, got my Lord, got my song. I ain't a frettin' about hell till the time arrive. Never worry long as I'm well. Never want to thrive, to be good, to be bad. What the hell, I is glad I's alive. Oh, I got plenty of nothing, and nothing's plenty for me. I got my gal, got my song, got heaven the whole day long. No use complaining. Got my gal, got my Lord, got my song. Laugh and sing and dance for two instead of one.
I would like to thank David and Rosa for the marvelous performance. Please be sure to meet them after the concert. Now, it is a story time. Earlier, I told you that I decided to give an all Gershwin program 2 years ago. Gershwin didn't write music for the organ, so I had to rewrite his music to the organ myself. The piece I first worked on was An American in Paris, to be performed as an organ duet. I chose this piece first because I knew it would take a long time for me to write and for us to learn. I got 2 different versions of the orchestra scores, compared them carefully, and I started to write so that Chiemi and I could play it on the organ together. I hope you understand that this task was not that easy. In the orchestra, many different musical instruments are used, and I have to shrink those parts to be played by 2 organists. I also needed to decide who would play what notes, what kinds of organ sound to be used, and so on. It was like a very complicated puzzle. Anyway, I spent several weeks and finished my first draft. So I asked Chiemi to test play with me. After we played the first page, we stopped because I thought it was just terrible. I am not kidding about this, but it took another several weeks before we got to the second page. And we had 32 more pages to go. I almost gave up this project a few times because it was just not working. If you know me well, you already know this, but I rewrote this piece over and over. I would like to confess to my church and apologize, but I easily wasted over a few thousand pieces of paper for this project. I really appreciate the patience of my wife during this process of writing and learning. Anyway, if you work at something very hard, it usually pays off, and we were able to learn it after all, and we are about to play it in public for the first time this evening. I also need to thank this magnificent instrument because without this pipe organ, I would not have been able to write this arrangement. It's not something we can play on any organs and really requires this instrument at First United Methodist Church. Finally, I'd like to tell you that the organ part of Rhapsody in Blue and American in Paris will be published this year, which, however, only few people will find it interesting and useful enough to buy, but that's okay. Now, I would like to talk about the music. Both Chiemi and I adore this piece of music. Gershwin visited Paris, France, not to be confused with Paris, Texas. And he got so inspired with what he saw and what he heard, and he wrote this piece. So, as you listen to this music, you are able to visualize the scenery of Paris. I have a favorite story of Gershwin's visit to Paris I want to share with you. Gershwin went to Paris because he wanted to study composition with a great French composer of the time, Maurice Ravel. But Ravel didn't accept Gershwin as his student. Ravel's message was this: why try to be a second-rate Ravel when you are already a first-rate Gershwin? In other words, don't copy others, be yourself. Several years ago, Chiemi and I visited Paris, and I thought about this piece by Gershwin. I'm sorry. Oh, by the way, I'm going to apologize 3 times tonight, like Peter denied Jesus 3 times. The first time was when I apologized to church about using too many pieces of paper. This time, I want to apologize to Gershwin for saying, George, your music doesn't sound like Paris to me at all. It is probably because the music sounds more American than French. To me, it is like being in New York City. instead of Paris. And it reminds me of my first visit to the Big Apple. So we will play it more like two Japanese in New York City instead of an American Paris tonight. And that's why I want to apologize to the composer. This is how music sounds to me. I have just arrived in New York City for the first time, and I'm now walking on the streets. Everything seems so busy but refreshing. The sound of a taxi horn comes from every direction. This is the Big Apple I always wanted to visit. After a while, evening comes. By the way, between each section, there is always this sort of sleepy or dreamy music, which makes this piece sound like it is a 2-night, 3-day trip to New York City, or 3 nights and 4 days, depending on how you analyze it. On the second day, I wake up and realize that there's a big parade or carnival going on. I will change the light color to yellow here. As you know, people in New York love all kinds of parades. After the carnival, I become tired, so I take a long nap, preparing for the big evening event. Then, here comes the romantic section of the music. In most music, there is always a need for one romantic section. I'd like to apologize once again for the last time here, but I don't know who I need to apologize to. Anyway, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you that this section of music sounds more erotic than romantic. I will change the light color to pink here so you will understand what I'm talking about. I guess Gershwin was probably visiting Moulin Rouge, which is a famous cabaret in Paris. To me, being in New York City, here I'm walking down on the 42nd Street. You can smell the cigarettes and the alcohol with lots of sexy women in this section. Then, since I stayed up late on the final night, I woke up after a short sleep. This is my last day in New York City, and I don't want to miss anything. So I go and run around the entire city with so much joy. After a while, many of the melodies you heard previously come back together, and the music ends with the grand finale. This is all my personal interpretation of the music, and I hope I won't ruin it for you. After all, this is an American in Paris, so I am going to get Chiemi, and we will both try to look like Americans while we play. Thank you again for coming tonight. After the concert, there will be a reception in the Prothero Family Atrium. If you go out from this door, just turn left and go straight. And we would like to meet you, and I hope you will meet the singers, David and Rosa, as well. And I also have to tell you that my mother is here tonight, but not from Japan, but from Waco, Texas. And Dr. Joyce Jones, she was responsible for bringing me to Waco, small Waco from big Tokyo, when I was 18. And I hope you will meet her and her husband, who married Chiemi and I here in this sanctuary at the end of last century. If you are curious about how the organ console will go back to its regular place, you can stay here and either watch it or give your hands to help. Thank you.